different than what a normal public adjusting company is. We have taken an entirely different kind of business model, and it is very effective. It allows us all to make a lot of money, and it allows us to work with clients that normally would be ignored by the public adjusting community. So we're going to talk about the purpose of it, the workflow, and then basically the life of a claim. All right, we're going to talk through how the claim works its way through the process. So public adjusting has been around for over 100 years. There's 48 states that have some sort of regulation associated with public adjusting. Alaska and South Dakota are two states that don't. There are a couple of states where it's illegal in most cases to be a public adjuster, like Arkansas and Louisiana. But most states have a respect for the profession and allow us to work in their states. Where we don't work is typically where lawyers or where insurance companies have a major stakeholding in the state itself. But public adjusting has been around forever, mostly focused on large or catastrophic losses. The businesses themselves are very small, very regionalized. Sometimes they don't even take up a full state. They just work in a county or in a city. Their involvement is always as a secondary thing. In other words, they're always reacting to a loss. They're never proactive. So they're always getting involved after a fire, after a hurricane, after a flood. Public adjusting requires a state license in almost all, well, in any state where it's allowed. We use Xactimate for estimating. And the reason for that is that that's the standard by the insurance companies. So we want to use the same tools that the insurance company use. Typically, although not exclusively, but typically it's a fee-based structure of compensation where the public adjusting company will take a fee of X amount of percent on the total claim. Now, there are some states that require you to have a fixed fee instead of a fee-based approach. And so, in those states, again, that makes it a little bit more difficult to work in them. Claims that are under $50,000 are typically considered to be small claims, and they're not often worked on by a public adjusting company. So, what is the state of the states? Well, there's 4 that don't have really any licensing or recognition. Those are Alaska, South Dakota, Arkansas, and Missouri. Missouri actually does have a license, but you can only do fires. At least that's one interpretation of it. We're trying to get better clarification of that, but right now I'm just not doing any hiring in Missouri. Then we have some states that have fee caps. What a fee cap is it means that there's a top end that we can charge a client for working on their claim. What that does in effect is it makes that you can only work on larger claims so that the fee that you get is adequate to cover the fixed costs and commissions associated with handling the claim. So where are those? They're typically in the Northeast and in the Gulf region. Again, Florida, do they have a fee cap? I don't believe they do.
They have a residency requirement. You got to be resident in order to claim.
That's just a hard state to work in. It's not, I don't think it's got a fee cap, but it may. It may have fee caps on certain kinds, on hurricanes, but I'm not sure on some of the other ones. There are open states, and this is where I put Florida, but they're challenging. So like Massachusetts, you have to have 2 years of probationary or as an apprentice. District of Columbia has some fee capping to it. Arizona requires you to take a separate test. California requires us to have an office in the state, which, by the way, we are in the process of setting up. Washington State is difficult, and so is Florida. So where should we do business? Hawaii, guys. I want to hire somebody in Hawaii. These are the states where if you have family or friends, or you have people that you where you travel to see, I would write the state down, and this is one where you're going to want to get your license. So, for example, I've got a daughter that lives just north of Boston, near the Maine border. So, because Massachusetts is a tough state to get licensed in, I have a license in Maine, so I can go see her. I have another daughter that lives in Ohio, so I have a license in Ohio. I've got another one that lives in Utah, so I've got a license in Utah. I have a sister-in-law in South Carolina. So you see, I have licenses where I want to go. And that way, every time I travel, it's a business expense. So you're going to want to develop your business where you like to go or where you want to go. Okay. I have a license in Colorado. I don't have anybody that I know in Colorado. I just want to go there. So I have a license there so that I can travel there, and it'll be a business expense. Any questions on the states? So we have this map up on the Metro Community, and it shows the states. The ones where there's black and red circles are the good states to work in. So again, if you want to just take a look at that, that's a good way of just kind of identifying where you may want to do business in the future. Louisiana, I don't know. That's they shouldn't be in there, but they are right now.
Oh Lord. Okay.
So the traditional public adjusting company is a mom and pop organization where the adjuster does all the work themselves. They have a very limited geography. Each adjuster is responsible for all their own casework. There's a lot of administrative requirements associated with being an adjuster in a small company like that. So you really have to focus on the large losses. Yeah, I see. Metro model. It's a decentralized model. In other words, all of us are located in various parts of the country so that we can be right there in the client, but we have a centralized back office. So each of us doesn't have to have our own administrative staff. We can share an administrative staff, which reduces our costs. We do proactive marketing, which is different from a normal public adjusting company. We go out and tell people about their policies in advance of damage, providing them an initial conversation. We split up the role of a public adjuster into two separate roles. One is called the solicitor, which is really what we call a claims rep or a claims writer. And then the second half of it's called a field adjuster. So by doing that, again, we are able to maximize the efforts of each of the people in the company, and we enable the company to be able to work on smaller claims. In fact, almost all losses can be done profitably by Metro, and that's outstanding. So you might ask, what is the smallest claim you can work on? Here's a good rule of thumb. If the client has a $1,000 deductible, then really you don't want to work on any claim that's less than $2,000 or $3,000 of damage. Okay? If they have a $1,500 deductible, you don't want to work on anything that's less than $3,000 to $5,000 worth of damage. If they have a $5,000 deductible, nothing less than $10,000. You see why I tell people that to try to get their deductible down? If you have a high deductible like that, you can't file a claim on almost anything. It makes it very difficult to file a claim. Those are good rules of thumb. So, there's always exceptions to the rule, but as a rule of thumb, that's the kind of thing you want to think about. The differences are they're reactive, we're proactive by doing policy reviews. They work with catastrophic losses. We work with anything 2 times the deductible or more. We work on all perils. They work on typically catastrophic perils. The process, they're regional, single adjuster doing all the work. It's single threaded. It's inconsistent coverage based upon who you actually are talking to, and very limited resources. With us, we're national. We have many adjusters, so we can back up an adjuster. So an adjuster can go on vacation and another adjuster will cover their claims. We have multiple points of contact. We have a back office that is compressed into a centralized area so that there's always somebody available to answer the telephone. And we have an ability to take the claim from inception to prosecution if we need to. In other words, we can actually file a lawsuit on the insurance company if they're not treating the client properly. So here's the workflow. Everything starts off with a referral or a new hire, bringing a new client on, or doing policy reviews. From there, we then educate that client on the policy, what the covered losses look like, and what is public adjusting in general. From there, we're going to be able to identify a covered loss. At that point, we write a claim and we submit it to corporate. At that point, our job as the solicitor or as the claims rep is basically done. We're still going to get called if the client has questions, but for the most part, we can move on and look for another claim at this point. And I recommend you do that. I don't recommend that you focus on following a claim through all the way through and checking up on, where it is all the time. If you're constantly looking over your shoulder, you're going to bump into a brick wall. So keep your eyes going forward. Okay. And you'll get paid and everything will come out. But if you keep looking backwards, pretty soon there won't be anything to look forward to. So at this point, now the field adjuster and the back office take over. At this point, the field adjuster does a scope of the damage. So at this point, we're going to identify whether or not this is a good claim. We're going to create an estimate. And only at that point do we contact the insurance provider. At that point, now we contact the insurance provider. We set up an adjuster meeting where we can review what the damage is with the insurance adjuster. We tell them the story. We don't let the client tell them the story because we know what words to say and what not to say. And then we start doing the negotiation. And that negotiation may go on for a month or so. Our typical claim is going to go from the beginning to the end. It's going to be anywhere between about 3 and 6 months. Why is it longer by working with us than doing it by yourself? The reason is because we're getting you every dollar you deserve. We're not accepting 25 cents on the dollar. We want you to get the whole dollar. And that means that we're going to make the insurance company work and we're going to make them pay. And that doesn't happen overnight, typically. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you end up with a good field adjuster on the insurance side and you can get it done. But more likely than not, it's going to be 3 months or more. And at that point, we're going to settle it and close the claim. Or at that point, we're going to realize that we have to go to what's called alternate resolutions. Isn't that nice? What that is saying is that there's 2 other approaches we can get to satisfy our clients. The first and the preferred is something called appraisal. This is where we bring in independent adjusters. The insurance company brings in one and we bring in one. They review the 2 estimates, all the pictures, all the documentation, and they draw a conclusion as to which estimate or where the damage should, what the settlement should be. At that point, you are bound by what they say. Now, if they can't agree, then you bring in a third, which is called the umpire, and they'll make the final settlement. But that's done through appraisal. That's a lot less expensive than working with lawyers. If we do have to go to court, typically we're going to end up losing our fee because the lawyers are then going to get the fee instead of us. But we'll have a satisfied client, and then we'll be able to get referrals from that client. So the life of a claim is the claim is logged within typically 24 to 48 hours of you writing the claim. The field adjuster is immediately assigned and notified. At that point, a scope meeting is set and posted. You will get notification of that meeting. I highly recommend trainees attend the scope meeting. If at all possible, when you get notified that there's going to be a scope meeting, plan on being there, because that adjuster will teach you. Okay. You will learn so much. That is how I learned this business, was by attending scope meetings. I didn't have a trainer. So yeah, it really is. You will learn so much. Yeah. Thanks, Robert. I completely agree. And it's worth its weight in gold as far as your ability to write better claims and to see the damage. These field adjusters will teach you to see what they see. And you cannot buy that anywhere else. So once the scope is done, then the claim is approved. At that point, trainees get paid their $200, their reimbursement money. As soon as the claim gets approved, that's what happens. And anyone who's on the advance program gets paid their advance at that point. Then the insurance company gets notified. The adjuster meeting will then take place. I highly recommend that you stay away from that meeting. Okay. You don't want to get in the way. And that's the only thing you can do at that point, is get in the way. So yeah. And you want to talk to your clients and tell them to stay away. I used to tell my clients that they needed to have a conference call scheduled at that point. Because we were in COVID, I would have them go to their second floor and just be in a room and just get away from me. So they would do that. And I was able to then talk to the adjusters, frankly, using the kind of language I needed to use. And I got what I needed from the insurance adjusters. Once that happens, then you're going to exchange estimates, negotiate, and you'll end up probably doing some kind of revisions on the estimates. Checks come in oftentimes in stages. So the adjuster and I may agree that $5,000 is due. I may think that there's another $5,000 due. But if the insurance company and I agree that there's at least $5,000 due, then they'll write a check for that $5,000. And the homeowner now has some money. Now I have to fight with the insurance company to try and get the additional $5,000. And we're pretty successful in doing that. So that's second. Then there might be a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth check. I've had as many as 10 checks. Robert, you're on, mute yourself, my friend. So you want to, I've had as many as 10 checks on a fire claim, and it was over a long period of time, over a year. But, the client was paid on a basis as the home was rebuilt. So the insurance company paid on those, at those waypoints. So you could end up with a partial settlement and then a final settlement. When clients want to know what's going on, they may ask you all kinds of questions, like, why do you, how are you possibly going to how am I possibly going to make all these repairs if you're taking some of the proceeds of the money? I need all that money so I can make the repairs. You need to be able to answer that. And there's a good answer to that. So, we need to be able to respond to it. You need to listen to the people and allow them to say the questions that they've got. They may not be friendly questions, but they're typically going to be fair questions. And that's a fair question to ask. And the answer to that question is, well, you're going to have enough to do the repairs because we're going to get you, remember, the full dollar. You're not going to end up with 17 cents or 25 cents on the dollar. We're getting you the full dollar. And then you're going to end up with 65 to 90 cents on that dollar instead of 25 cents. Would you agree 65 cents allows you to get more repair work done than 25 cents? Okay, so let us move forward. Trust us in this. And they will. You'll work with them. Contractors, a lot of times they'll say, well, my contractor's price is a lot more expensive. Do you have a signed contract with that contractor? No. All right. Well, I would go out and shop it a little bit because maybe that contractor is being a little bit too rich on this thing. What loss damages were not addressed. If, somebody says that this estimate's not large enough, tell me where I'm missing something because I'm more than happy to put it in. I just need to know what it is that you think is missing. So these are some of the things that you can get an answer to, and you can really help people understand whether or not they're being reasonable in their questions. A lot of times people will back off after you've kind of, asked some of this to them because they don't, they realize that they're probably overreacting. We've been doing this for 28 years. We have a lot of experience in it. We do, for the last couple of years, last 5 years or so, we've been doing over 10,000 claims a year. It's a lot of claims, guys. Most insurance companies do maybe 200, 300 claims in a year. We're doing 10,000. Just think of the experience that gives us in handling different insurance companies, in handling different adjusters in different situations. Also, and don't underestimate this, at Metro, each of the adjusters has to be Hague certified for roofing and IICRC certified for water and fire damage. What that means is that we are actually higher certified in understanding the damage and the scope of these kinds of damages than the insurance adjusters that we're going up against. That's important because now when I say something to the insurance adjuster, I can ask them, are you Hague certified? Because I am. That's kind of tough. Okay. They then don't have the legs to stand on for their position.
Paul,
Yes.
quick question. What do you typically say to a homeowner who wants us to provide the estimate before they sign the contract?
Find another adjusting company. Nobody's going to do that. That's doing all the work in advance. And all they want us to do is do a free estimate for them. Screw
They have you
them.
confused with a contractor.
I'm sorry. That's my estimate is my work product.
Right.
That is my intellectual property. That's what I've been trained to do. I've got, we have over 1,000 years worth of experience that goes into those estimates. There's no way we can do those for free. That's our work product.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's somebody who's trying to get away with something. Can you imagine that? A client actually trying to get away with something? I can't even imagine it. Oh my. Any questions on this? And if you did think that was a sarcastic remark, yes, it was. I'm very sarcastic.